Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here. And in artificial intelligence news, we have to talk about AI's long-term energy problem. As these things continue to expand, they are consuming an absolute ton of power. And we've seen this before when it comes to technological innovation. In the last 10 years or so, cryptocurrency came on the scene and absolutely exploded the energy consumption needs due to processing power, etc., etc. But AI is really dropping a supercharger in this, and it's doing it pretty rapidly. And so there's some really good reporting from Evan Halpert and Caroline O'Donovan of the Washington Post. And I think we should dive in because, quite frankly, this affects us all. Now, here's what's going on. As you know, the tech giants of the world, Microsoft, now NVIDIA, obviously, with the processors, all that kind of stuff, OpenAI, Google, etc., they are in an AI arms race. And so by virtue of that, we have seen a massive boom in construction, specifically for data centers. And some of these massive campuses of data centers are requiring as much energy as a modest-sized city. And so obviously, that is a huge issue because these big tech firms that essentially were promised to lead the way in clean energy, etc., are now some of the largest consumers of power around the world. And that's obviously a huge thing. Their projected energy needs are so huge that energy experts are actually concerned if there's going to be enough electricity to essentially cater to them as well as the general population. So data centers have been around for decades. We all know this. The cloud's been around for quote unquote ever, but the amount of electricity they need is now absolutely soaring because of AI. So training artificial intelligence models and then using AI to execute even simple tasks is essentially increasing the amount of energy that these companies need. And the more complex and faster and voluminous that they get in terms of their computations, that energy consumption is continue to grow. So think about it this way. Most of us have used ChatGPT. If you're watching or listening to this, odds are you have. Everybody's done a Google search in one way, shape, or form at some point in their life. Everybody has. So by virtue of that, one single ChatGPT-powered search, meaning you're asking ChatGPT a single question, according to the International Energy Agency, is consuming about 10 times the amount of electricity that a standard search on Google is. And so that's obviously a massive draw of power, and we've got a massive explosion in the use of artificial intelligence. Just one large data center complex in Iowa, for example, that is owned by Meta, meaning that data center is pumping out Facebook, it's pumping out Instagram, WhatsApp, anything else that Meta owns. They burn in that one data center the annual equivalent amount of power as 7 million laptops running 8 hours every single day based on the data that Meta shared publicly on it. That is an enormous amount of data. But here's the thing, and I think this is the kicker of it all. The data center-driven resurgence in fossil fuel power consumption is contrasting starkly with the commitments that the big tech giants have made, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, etc., all of which have said that they will erase their emissions entirely by 2030, meaning, guys, we got 5.5 years, and now you're consuming more power than ever, fossil fuel-wise. So that's huge. Now, these companies are the most prominent players in basically the 2,700 plus data centers nationwide here in the US, and many of them are being run, interestingly enough, by obscure firms that are renting out power to the tech giants I just mentioned. Now, the response from big tech in general has basically been to say, we're going to double down on our promise of sustainability and all of that, but now they're saying that artificial intelligence itself could actually lead to a breakthrough in clean, sustainable energy. In other words, let the AI consume as much power as it wants, as it cures cancer and figures out a way to get us cold fusion where we don't have to do anything in terms of, fossil fuel consumption, etc. But because of this resurgence that we're seeing right now, the coal industry is having a boom as coal power plants are now firing up and essentially burning even more than they were before. And of course, artificial intelligence would have to consume a massive amount of power to achieve cold fusion or whatever the next sustainable energy breakthrough is. And that's even assuming that AI is the one that invents it, or if it even can. And if that achievement does come, when does it come? Tomorrow, when we're burning 7 million laptops in an 8-hour instance in one single data center? Or is that going to be in 20 years, when the situation is even worse, as we are trying to keep up with the ever-growing glut of power? Now, if there's one thing that I do know and I do recognize, it's basically thanks to the internet, we, as a general population, as a species around the globe, and the billions of us, 4 to 5 billion that are online, are consuming literally more of absolutely everything, power, resources, you name it, than ever before in human history. Now, I think this is really interesting because it kind of gives one a Malthusian outlook as to where this is going. And if you're not familiar with Thomas Malthus, he simply said at some point, we are going to run out of resources, and by virtue of that, it's going to be war. It's going to be crazy. We may make humanity extinct. And so we're going to see what happens, but right now, as it stands, we are consuming more power than we are able to really build and add on to these grids. And when you look at, let's say, states like Texas, when they had a snap cold freeze, which is unusual for them, and the entire state goes down and they can't really consume that, and now you're adding more and more data centers to Texas and the surrounding area, that's a problem. And that's what I'm talking about. So we're going to see where this goes. I am skeptical as to a 2030 promise of, you know, erasing your carbon footprint or your zero emissions or whatever. I think that's actually kind of BS, because there's no way in 5.5 years they're going to suddenly reverse course when they are consuming more and more and more and more and more every single day, as we, the consumers, consume more and more and more and more and more of artificial intelligence. So here we are. I don't think there's an easy answer, but if you've got one, I'd love to hear it. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.